You want to build your community where your audience is at, if you know where they're at. But also, what I've found is that when you try to build a community, say on a social media platform, say Facebook, you don't quote unquote you don't own that experience. You don't own the data.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 115. Now, community. It is a buzzword. It is rightfully so a buzzword. It's something that I talk about a great deal on this show. Not only me, because I believe in it and I'm working on building mine, but also because so many people talk about it as a way to leverage your time, to not feel alone. And it's important. So important that I thought I'd bring this next guest on. So I met Chris Catania on a call back, I think it was in January, one of the different sort of networking calls and things that I'm invited to. And he was there and he's talking about community, and he's working on a book called The Community First Company. And I thought, perfect, we'll get Chris on. So Chris is an award-winning enterprise community builder, futurist, and a workplace collaboration expert. For more than 20 years, he has helped organizations leverage the power of community, digital networks, and engagement to deepen trust, increase loyalty, and build better products. And so in this conversation, we're going to focus on a couple things. So one is, starting a community and a couple things that you need to keep in mind for that. And also sustaining. So once you have one, what do you want to consider to keep it going? And the value of it, like the clear objectives that you might want to keep in mind when starting your community, because that's important. I built one in the past, a membership, and I didn't have a clear objective on really what I wanted to do with the community that existed beyond the membership, the paid membership. And it fizzled out because I just was clueless. So, guys, I'm looking forward to introducing you to the amazing Chris. He's coming on right now. Shall we welcome him? Here we go. Welcome to the show, Chris Catania. How are you? How's it going?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Even Chris and I were just talking about how he's noticed a lot of what I talk about on the show is about the importance of community. And Chris and I met a few months ago on a call. And when he said that's what he does for a living in his business, is to help people with growing, building, and sustaining communities. I thought, okay, now's the time. We need an official community building expert on the session, or on the podcast. And that's why I have him here, because we're going to have such a cool chat. I know the stuff that we're going to talk about is going to be life-changing for you guys, because the power of community is everything. Before we dive into, Chris, your background and what you're doing now and actual tips on community, I want to start with you specifically and your business and a few tips, roughly 3 tips that you personally do to grow your business smarter and just to, kind of rein in the overwhelming moments.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, there's 3 things. The first one is it's no big surprise. It's to be community led and really to apply everything that it means to build community and community management and the collaboration, the connection, the relationship building. Let that lead your business. That makes it a lot easier. It brings the human element into it. It helps you work through different struggles, and it just, for me, it's helped me keep business centered on why am I doing this and what's the purpose, right? So that's the first one. Second one is create shared value. Whether it's a community getting launched or any kind of product or any kind of service that I'm delivering or thinking of creating, I always have to think of, how is this going to create value for the client or for their customers, and it has to go both ways, because again, that's how it works in really good, well-designed communities, is that there's shared value for both people and engaged. So again, it just brings back the element of, there's humans involved in business. You can't do business without human beings. I know sometimes we forget that. And so that helps bring it back. And then the second one is, think long game and think long game in a sense that, the idea of running a marathon, the idea that, building a business is similar to climbing a mountain, and doing these things that take a series of steps successes, failures. When you go through a failure, I just see that as, okay, it's an experiment. You're going to learn something. You have a hypothesis. You're going to test it out. Either you were right or you were wrong, and just kind of keep that black and white, and just not to get too emotional about things, and just look at it as an experiment. I like to get creative. I certainly have a
Mm.
creative side, but then I like to dip into the science part of building businesses, and to me that means putting that the scientific method to work, hypothesis, and just go, okay, I'm going to test this out. New product, new audience, new content, whatever it is, new way of engaging, and if it goes well, great. If it doesn't, I'm going to learn something, and we're going to move on. So those are the things that have really helped over time. I certainly didn't do all those right out of the gate, but over the period of time of working with clients and working through struggles, successes, certainly had a lot of mentors along the way over the years, helped me develop that in myself. But those are three things that I come back to, when
Yeah.
as I've been building businesses,
Yeah, I
or
like
this
them.
business.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned obviously you didn't do them out of the gate. Of course not, because it's a learning adventure
Yes.
for all of us. And I want to know a little bit about you, like your backstory, because I actually don't know this. I know kind
Mm-hmm.
of who you are today, but where did you start in your professional life, and how did you end up where you are now with your expertise in community building?
Yeah, it's crazy. When I think back to where I started, it is starting as a music journalist. Back
Okay,
back
excellent.
20, almost 20, yeah, over 20 years ago. I
Yeah,
was going to
wow.
be a music journalist, or I'm sorry, I was going to be a journalist, and then this thing called the internet happened, and
Yeah,
newspapers kind of shrunk, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I leaned on my content and interviewing and journalism skills, and as all these new tools, things like YouTube and social media, online forums, were still, they've been around for decades, but at that point they weren't being used in the context of business like they are today. So I just started experimenting, and I just stacked a bunch of experiences. I got opportunities with ad agencies to combine copywriting and advertising work with building community. Some cases I was at the right place at the right time to build
yeah,
out different opportunities. And then I got into the idea of community, and I've always been community driven and just in who I am. But then I realized that you could apply community management in the context of business, and use community building strategies and tactics to achieve business goals. And
mm,
that was maybe like 10 or 15 years ago, where I had that epiphany and aha moment, and a light bulb went on. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I could use all these things that I'd love to do anyways, to help businesses connect with their customers and connect with their staff internally. So I've built communities for large organizations, internal, like internal social intranets, and internal collaboration networks for enterprises. But then I've
wow.
also helped companies build external communities, digital online forums for product innovation, support call deflection, marketing, all the advocacy groups, things like that. So that's been my journey, and it's again, it's been very powerful. I feel very blessed to be able to combine something that I love and it's needed in the marketplace, because even 20 years ago, and even today, there is still opportunity to have leaders integrate community into their mindset. And I think we'll get into that in a moment or whatever. But
I will.
that that is what drives me, and to be able to have that amazing connection of what I love to do, the world needs it, I'm good at it, and it can help people. So I think that's what's led me to today, and like we were talking before the you hit record there, was community is a hot topic, and it kind of has been
Huge.
for a while, but it's taken on different forms. And I don't know if we'll dive into that because that's a whole probably a whole nother podcast in itself. but that's my journey, and
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it, and it's led me to work on a book, and all that stuff. So
Is
it's
your
been
book, is it launched yet, or are you still working on it?
it's still in progress. Yeah, yeah, should be
Okay,
available later this year, early next year, and
excellent.
getting all that set up. So that's really been again a joy and a challenge. Kind of a mixture of that. Writing a book can be very insightful and challenging, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that
it's really great. I mean,
definitely.
it's really helped me to crystallize a lot of things that again I think we'll talk about in this chat.
Cool. Okay, love
that's
it.
that's it.
Interestingly, a few episodes before this one, I interviewed a guy named Simon Saravino, and
Mm.
he, of course, starts talking about community towards the end of our conversation. And he said to me, community is the new marketing. And I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
a really good line. And so now I would like to dive into what's your business name, by the way, with what you do?
Yeah, it's called Community First Company Services.
Excellent.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So let's talk through community. And specifically, I want to take this conversation in a couple of ways. And then we'll talk about how you've specifically helped some clients as well coming up. But to
Mm-hmm.
start with, there's obviously the let's start a community component. And then there's the hey, now I have one. What do I do with it to keep it going? So
Yep.
let's start about the hey, let's start a community. Let's just talk about a service-based business, for example. Somebody that maybe is in professional services like lawyer, accounting, finance, because it's an interesting, sort of what some people might say quasi boring area. How
Mm-hmm.
might somebody in that space, professional services, start a community, and what would that maybe look like?
Yeah, yeah, great question. I think that is the interesting part about community is that there are lots of ways to integrate it into businesses. You know, it can be large enterprises, small businesses.
Yeah.
Most verticals have a fit for community. Some don't, and I've found that out over the years. But I
Okay.
think what really is the key point that I like to guide clients down and the path is like what do you want to achieve with that? Do you want to drive growth? Do you want to reduce costs? Obviously you want to do both of those at a business, but when you're starting out, it's really best to kind of pick one one of those goals because it's hard to show progress in a community during the launch phase or that early post launch phase, say like 1 to 3 years if you're trying to do more than one or two business goals. Usually
Yeah.
companies that are successful, they pick some, okay, we're going to use it to reduce our costs, like to reduce marketing costs. We're going to get a bunch of people to create marketing content because they're excited about the product, and we're going to create advocacy. Like, go for it. Or we're going to
Yeah.
reduce costs by not having people have to call in all the time, and we're going to let them help each other and solve each other's problems in the community. And it could be anything related to that. So that's just two examples of like cost savings. And if you're going to do something like driving revenue, then you're going to look at how are we going to be able to create advocates that are going to create content to go out and share the
Yeah.
goodness of your products, right? And sing your praises and advocate for you. So you can do all that within a community. By then when they create the content, and then certainly that is what is mostly done with that. And the other thing is if you have a product, it's very exciting and really important actually, if you can do it, to create the community while you're creating the product if it's a first time. So if you're service based business, everybody has a product and you can get
Yeah.
feedback on that. So that is more of like the innovation use case with community, where you're saying, give us some product ideas. How are you liking it? As we're developing the product, we want to incorporate your ideas and feedback into that. And then when you actually do that as a company, tell your customers thank you, recognize them, give them a sense of belonging as you're building your product. And that could be a tech product, could be a service product, could be really anything. But it's using community for product innovation, and so that's why I love. I mean, that's why I love having these conversations and learning all the ins and outs of a business, because I get to have this really cool conversation and learn about their business and like what's working, what's not. We tend to start out with, where's the pain, and
Yep.
what is not working, and can community, can an online network help that? Can a community driven mindset help redirect some things? Is there a brand issue? Is there a lack of um, idea, or are you not scaling enough? Things like that. So communities are great for that long term. So I mean, again, I could
Got it.
kind of go on and on and on with that, but that's the exciting part about that.
When you're starting a community with somebody, and I love the user generated content piece and all of that. Whenever I'm talking marketing, I talk about the customer journey and how you have loyalty and advocacy is a huge part of that, and a lot
Hmm.
of businesses fall down in that space. What sort of tools, or if we go a little bit more tactical, are we just talking like a private email list? Are we talking like a Facebook group? How would you communicate and have this sort of user input? What sort of channels would you do to make that happen?
Yeah, great question. Very popular question. At time can be a very contentious question as well, because you want to build your community where your audience is at, if you
Yeah.
know where they're at. But also, what I've found is that when you try to build a community, say on a social media platform, say Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Um, you don't quote unquote like own. You don't own that experience. You don't
Yep.
own the data, and the UX UI can change, as I've experienced many times, many years. That's why if you're going to build like a brand community that's about your company or your product, most likely better to buy something off a platform off the shelf. So an actual platform that you can design and launch and control for
Yep.
the most part. Um, and then you can still use the social media channels and tools to do that, but I like to think of them as outposts. If you're going to have a branded community experience, you still want to go out where people are at, but you want to bring them into the party. You don't want the party to be on social media, to the extent where like everything is there, because then all your data and all your conversations and all your customer insights things, and you really can't go what I call deep, like in social media. It's hard to do that. So if your use case is around product, and you want to invest in a deeper, more meaningful experience, probably not a good thing to use social media. But you could start there, because I know
Yep.
sometimes resources aren't there, or they're tight, and you need to start with a Facebook group, whatever. So there's different channels. I don't think there's any one like clear cut solution for that. There's an idea that community is everywhere. Some thoughts are out there about that. I like to think of community and decide on platform and channel based off of I use a lot of the CX, the customer journey. Like, where are they
Yeah.
at? Where are you going to put community and discover, the consider, purchase,
Yep.
advocate, like that whole cycle, right? That think about where community is going to sit, and then that helps you decide on your platform. What tends to happen where community doesn't work is that you get led by the shiny tool syndrome, and
Yes.
and and you're just like, oh, that looks like let's just pick that platform, and you put technology selection ahead of community design, and then that's where the you know problems can happen. I've seen that happen before, where you just, oh, let's just launch a Facebook group, or let's just go pick the platform because it looks slick and it appears to do it.
Hmm.
But when you uncover it, oops, we didn't. The requirements of the platform don't meet our business requirements. It don't need. They're not going to let us grow. We don't have control over this stuff. So community
Yeah.
goals, business design, like that tends to drive all of the platform discussion. But it's really tricky to want to go and like, oh, what's the cool hip new tool, to go
Exactly. And then you
to
got to
do,
try
do
and get
that.
people into it as well, which can be a challenge if you're not
Yeah,
thinking through where they're
yeah,
hanging out and the types of people that are actually in your community either.
yeah, and that takes time. Like it takes time. And best communities, they start over a period of years, and they grow, just like
Yeah.
relationship. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. It
relationships
takes
grow, communities grow. You can't
community and
force
they
them.
change. It's interesting you talked about Facebook too. The other day is there's a big problem right now on Meta with people getting their accounts hacked. I was
Mm,
talking to a woman who literally ran her business in a Facebook group. And like that's where she did all of her communications and her updates and got her business coming in from. And her account was hacked,
yeah,
completely no access to her group, her page, her ad account, all of it. And it
yep.
took her like 3 months to try and get it back. So I
Mm,
love that you mentioned using it as like outposts,
hmm.
but making sure that you're not building it on borrowed land.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that phrase. I love where you said that, because that is exactly what you don't want to have happen, which can happen. I've worked with
Yeah.
clients before that, again, for whatever reason, they couldn't see why they needed to invest in an owned platform, and then
Yeah.
unfortunately go through a little bit of a pain, and oops, Facebook changed their algorithm, or Facebook does that. You get, there's security risks and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you
Yeah.
can do it on your own platform, best to best to do so.
Good. Good. So we're
Yeah.
going to talk now about sustaining community and sort of that long-term growth. I remember, Chris, like a while back when I had a membership site. This was probably 8 years ago. And I remember getting like community burnout because
Hmm.
I was like I felt like I was pushing against like a mountain to try and keep it interesting, to try and keep myself interested. What do you recommend for people that do have a community already, a business community, to deliver value long term, like and how to continue with it as well?
Yeah, yeah, great. Again, great question. What I've done over the years is I've developed a system.
Okay.
I call it the 3E system: shared values, community strategy system. It's comprised of three E's: experience, which is this combination of business operations and CX. The idea that
Yeah.
don't silo community in just one area, but have a long game idea of, like, you're going to put it across the entire business. So that's
Ah.
E, experience. Second one is enablement. So strategically and consciously enable your staff and your customers. So that means make sure your staff, whatever size company you're is, it might be, explain why you're doing community, what it
Yeah.
is, and how it fits into their role. Because do not assume that your staff know how to do that, because everybody has different definitions for community. And if you're
Yeah.
at a company and say your job is sales, or your job is marketing, or your job is support or product development, just those 4 or 5 roles all have different goals and are going to leverage community in different ways. So you have to invest in training and enablement, and have that clear idea at the beginning. And then the third E is evaluation. So this is the data. This is why we go and say, well, what are our business goals, and what are the business KPIs, and what what parts of the community data are we going to use as success metrics, success KPIs, to do that. So in evaluation is also this concept of using what I call hard metrics and soft metrics to do this, like, storytelling, to say, okay, we're on track with our numbers, kind of the hard piece of that, the numbers and the data. And then the
Yep.
soft piece is the storytelling, the human piece. How is this community impacting people? How is it changing the lives of your customers and making them successful? Um, and then,
Nice.
so those 3 E's together, in the middle of that is shared value. So what I've found over the years that is, if you take out any one of those E's out of that equation, the community doesn't deliver as much value as it could, or it gets deprioritized. For example, say you don't enable customers, or you don't train your staff. You launch
Yep.
this thing, you put it in one part of the company, you're going to measure it, right? But nobody knows why. Like, why are we doing this community thing? Like, what's the purpose of it? If you don't tell
Right.
anybody why, it's going to be like, oh, it's an extra thing. I got my list of things to do. I'm not going to do this community thing, because you're only going
Doesn't
to
seem
get,
important.
doesn't
Yeah.
seem important, right? So And then the other side, if you say you train people and you have metrics, but you silo this community experience in one part of the company, and you don't
Yeah.
have a long game. So that's not going to work either. And then you don't get as much value of like taking community across the entire company. So I've had a lot of fun and some heartache, but really mostly fun, coming down to the point where I know that if you combine these three E's in this way, you create that shared value both with internal stakeholders across the company. Everybody knows leadership is all aligned, and then you also get a chance to create shared value for customers, and
Mm,
involved. So that's that's how I sustain it, because I've seen companies that don't do that, and
yeah.
they for whatever reason don't have a long game approach, and you know, they get forced by the market shifts, priorities change, shareholders are asking for this, product development changes direction, and the community is not there, they don't get it, and they stop investing in it, and then it doesn't sustain. But if you do all those three E's, I've seen companies be very successful. They get it, leadership's engaged, they're training staff, they're measuring, they're storytelling, and it starts in one part of the company, say product development, and then they put community across the whole company, and then it's
Smart.
truly a community driven company, not just like one
Ah,
part
yes.
one part of it. So that's
I
that's
can
what I love to do. It's a
I can see that, yeah, and I love some of the little nuances in this conversation as well around. I'm thinking back to some of the stuff that I did that failed, and yeah, I mean, I didn't clearly communicate with the team, why it was there. I didn't even really think why it was there. I just like, oh, it's good to have a community, and but
yeah.
like the core reason to do it, and then getting it across the company as well. It's yeah, some smart little piece of advice in there. And you
Mm-hmm.
said something as well around being like a community led company. So I do want to talk to that a little bit, because a lot of us in business, we can, gets lonely, and you
Mm-hmm.
sort of start to grind in and go, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And you're like, I'm a solo leader, and you have this mindset thing that's going on. So talk to me around shifting into that community led company sort of leader mindset.
Oh man, I'm glad you asked that, because that's something I've really been exploring, especially with the book that I've been working on. Because it's like I wanted to write something and put together what I've seen over the years as I've interacted with all different types of leaders,
Yeah. Okay.
CEOs, VPs, operators, and I've seen two types of leaders. What I call community first, community led leaders who get the value of community. Maybe they have it on a personal level, and they've seen it, they've experienced it. They know the power of community and belonging is not just a warm and fuzzy, but they know that this is this is business too. Like this is combined, the human and the business, and those two can coexist. So the community led, and they lead with that idea. They're open, they're collaborative, they promote trust, they want to enable. They're like saying no to, for the most part, to command and control type
Yeah.
of, they're not thinking like, oh, I'm the only one who could do this and I got to like squeeze control, or they're not afraid to hear feedback from customers in out in the open. Because the other flip side is what I've been calling, and I'm still kind of playing around with how I talk about this, to be honest, but it's the idea of this lonely leader, or the lone wolf type of leader. The reason I say lonely is because the opposite of community is alone,
Yeah.
loneliness, which there's a
Yeah.
loneliness epidemic happening in the world now. Like it's been documented since 2017, 2019, or whatever. And oddly, with all our technology and with all the things that
Mm.
we could stay connected with each other, a lot of people, millions and millions of people, are saying that they're alone. So I call it the lonely leader, because everything associated with loneliness is negative, right? Is things that don't allow for collaboration. It's a solo mindset. It's lack
Yeah.
of trust. It's inability to recognize people, that should be recognized, or different things like that. It's basically the antithesis of community. It's that they're
Yeah.
they're at opposites. So
Yeah.
I love stories. I love movies. So like every story, when you're building community, every story has a hero and a villain. So the hero is the community driven leader fighting this good fight, trying to bring people together with their business, and the villain is loneliness, and those who want to drive companies with this idea that they can do it all on their own, or these really old management concepts, outdated in that way. The industrial revolution type of management styles and things like that that people just don't. Fortunately, they're still out there. We still struggle with them, but that's what I mean about community driven versus community loneliness,
Yeah.
epidemic, and that's
Yeah.
and there's a lot of competitive advantage to being community led. A lot of companies are doing it. A lot of leaders are already on board, on boat. They're quite ahead of those. So the issue with that is that if you're not on that boat yet, or on that train, or whatever mode of transportation you want to use on the metaphor, you're going to be left behind in that
Yeah.
aspect. Not only with your mindset, but you kind of put your company at risk in the marketplace, because
Mm.
community gives you all these advantages of agility in the marketplace, your deeper connection with your customers, all these different things. So that's what I've been exploring. It's been very fascinating to kind of put this duality together with community led leaders and the lonely leader. It's kind of a, I don't know. It always kind of gets me when I think about like a lonely leader, but then I have examples in my mind of lonely leaders that I've interacted with, and
Yeah.
it's like, man, I've seen them go from being a lonely leader mindset to to
To
a
shifting.
community led leadership, and that's pretty cool. Like, that's amazing when that happens.
That's so cool. There's always sort of like a saying in marketing, the us versus them scenario. If you can
Mm.
create that feeling where you create people that are in your advocates, essentially your customers, and then they actually sort of label themselves as a loyalist, or somebody that loves what you do so much that they're out there just talking about you without you even knowing it as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you're a
Creating a
champion.
tribe. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, tribes. Yeah, I mean, yeah, tribe is very similar to the community concept.
Community. I
Hmm.
want to talk a little bit about who you help. So, what would be like an ideal sort of business that you can help, and then what do you specifically do with them? Is it building stuff? Is it consulting? What, maybe all of the above? So, who do you help, and then what do you do?
Yeah, usually working with leaders, the
Yep.
operators, because in order for community to be really effective in an organization, it has to start at the top. There's just no way around that. Of course, you could start at different parts of the middle organization, but I usually work with leaders, who are what I call community curious. They don't have to be
Yeah.
community
Okay.
champions right out of the gate, but it's that
Yeah.
community curious leader, that has that element of like, okay, I may not get all of this, but I know it's important enough to want to work with Chris, or explore this more. How do we put this into the business to be guided with
Yeah.
that? So that's the idea. I work with all types of different types of companies, B2B, B2C. There's tech tends to work really well with community, but it's not. There's a lot of examples to use community, not just in a digital online uh,
Yeah.
concept. We haven't really talked about this a whole bunch yet, but the idea of face to face community, and building that sense of community with people in person. And boy, do we feel that during COVID, right? It was like we couldn't get together with people, and we're like, the online's great, but man, we miss getting together. So I help companies do that. Like, it depends on their business, but small, medium businesses, medium sized.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's anybody who sees the power of community, you can probably fit into your business in some way, and you should, if you're not already doing it, like, start now.
Start now, you guys. And then what should they do to learn
Right?
more about you? Should they jump on a call? Are there resources on your site? What would be like a really great first step for them to take?
Yeah, yeah. You can go to my LinkedIn page, and see what I'm posting there. There's also an opportunity to jump on a call, because I tend to do. I love speaking to leaders. In a workshop setting as well, leading workshops, doing different consulting in different ways, just really helping, right? Understanding your business and seeing how we can use community to solve problems. And I like to say, make money, save money. I mean, what,
Yeah.
what we're all here to do in some aspects. Of course, help the world, but we're running businesses.
Yeah.
if you don't
Yeah,
if
we
you don't
are.
make money or save money, it's hard to be make an impact.
Absolutely.
So that's the
Absolutely.
idea. Yeah.
And
Yep.
community is such a strong leverage point for that. As we start
Hmm.
to wrap up, because that 30 minutes just flew by, as we
Hmm.
start to wrap up, what are there any last sort of words of advice or wisdom for the listeners, those that are growing their businesses, that are overwhelmed, that are sort of thinking, I'm banging my head against the wall, I've got to do something different?
Yeah, I would just think, based off of what we've been talking about, like how does community fit into your business? We've kind of talked about different aspects, of it. Do you want community to help you drive growth? Do you want it to help you drive revenue? And then, however you answer that, then just to know that community it is a long game. It's an experiment to kind of figure out how that works. Um, it's something that will certainly drive value for you, but just know that there is a sense of exploration of what you can do with community, and that it's a journey, it's an adventure to figure it out. But from working with customers and working with leaders, I haven't met anybody who's invested in it that said, "Oh, I wish we didn't do that. I wish we didn't invest in community." When they see the results, they'll go, "Wow, I didn't know that we could do that," or they're like, "Wow, I've really changed in that way." And
Yeah.
being community led, being community driven, also, just reach out. Reach out to other customer, or other leaders. There's
Yeah.
That's the whole idea behind community, is to be able to look at and get help from other leaders. And that's what I'm hoping to do, to create a community at some point of community driven leaders who want to do that, because it can be lonely if you're a community driven leader at a company who is not of that mindset. Especially, I know leadership can be lonely in
Yeah.
many aspects, and community can help you weather that storm. It can
Yeah.
not only transform your company, but it can help you as uh, you know a, a mechanism in your career. Like, it can make you
Yeah.
a better leader in that aspect. So
I like that, you guys.
versatile.
Yeah, Chris, man, thanks for being here, and everyone that's listening. Hopefully, this has given you a few steps and ideas on maybe if you have a community, what you could do to sustain it and build it better than what you're doing. If you're just sort of thinking, you know what, yeah, wow, it's time. I'm ready. Let's build this community of ours to help us. Because I love what you said about the lonely mindset, and just remembering that you guys have beautiful customers, you have incredible team around you already. Structure, give it structure, and it will be very rewarding. So Chris, thank you for being here and sharing your words of advice with our listeners.
Thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate the invite. Love the conversation.
Thank you.